Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Thunderstorm or Thunderstruck show. I don't know what's happening. Packernet Podcast, welcome to the show, everybody. I wasn't sure if I was hearing that or not. The storm is just starting to roll in here. So I apologize for all the background ambiance that may be happening. Today is Corner Day. We're going to be looking at corners. Just took a peek, and there's definitely no way that we're getting through multiple positions, which is fine. Corner's a big one, and so we'll get through that. I think we're going to start going the other direction today. So Devin Moore, Julian Neal, Malik Muhammad, Davis Igbinosun, Keith Abney, Keontae Scott, Traden Stukes, maybe D'Angelo Pons. And then that's kind of where it gets to be, how much further do we keep going? Brandon Cisse is at 43. We'll probably grab him if we have time. Chris Johnson at 38. Colton Hood at 35. Avian Terrell at 30. Again, unlikely, but you want to cast as wide of a net as possible. But for the sake of time, we'll start with Devin Moore and start working our way back. It's always hard to start with the first guy because I don't have a baseline. This is kind of why I like starting down here, because you watch him and you're like, oh, I like him. He's good. And then as you get further, you're like, oh, that's what good looks like. Okay, never mind. I don't think that's as good. And I prefer that to going the other way, because usually what'll happen is I'll look at the top guy in the draft and I'll say, I don't see why this is so special. This is stupid. And then you go back further and further, and it just keeps getting worse, and it's not as fun. But I'll say this with Devin Moore. I think he would fit into the category of, for a later round pick, let's say third, maybe fourth, who knows, maybe you get lucky. I think it could work. He's 6'3". He's got, the long arms and all that kind of stuff to be able to handle business. He's got some really nice highlights. There's a hustle play of him running all the way down the field, punching the ball out. Ref said he was down at like the 1, but that's one of those things where it could have gone either way. Run support, he's shown up. I think one of the biggest benefits is that he plays very similarly to how he's going to be asked to play. Now, it seems very different because he plays more of a cover 3 at Florida, whereas Gannon is more of a cover 4, but ultimately, what he's being asked to do, because Gannon will mix in cover 3, cover 6, whatever, is the deep zone drops where you're covering a portion of the deeper part of the field. And so up on the line of scrimmage, you have to be able to cover him deep. If he runs, you got to have the speed to go with him. Now, he's a 4.5 guy. He's not an elite speed guy, but I didn't really see him get cooked. Maybe if you look hard enough for it, it'll be a problem. But that, in addition to the click and close thing, which is kind of my biggest concern with him, when you do the slam on the brakes and start curling back toward the quarterback, can he stop his momentum, flip his hips, and get downhill fast before the ball gets there? That was the one thing I thought, I feel like he's getting burned on that quite a bit. And that's a big one. You have to be able to close distance fast. So I'm okay with it. I could see it if we drafted him, saying like, oh yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Am I enamored with him as though this is going to be great? And it's no, not. It's a big question mark. We'll see if he can come in, compete, maybe win himself a job, kind of a thing. Oh boy, we got got some storms here. Julian Neal. So this was a tough one because again, the film people are slacking a little bit. So I started by watching highlights, and then I thought, I like him way too much. I can't do this. I have to watch something. So I'm watching Arkansas Razorbacks at number 17 Ole Miss Rebels on the SEC YouTube channel. It's the full condensed game and just kind of skipping until you get to them on defense. I can fully confirm I am a big Julian Neal fan. There's one of those kind of like, okay, let's wait a little bit. Let's see. Hold on. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah. And then there was a play with they're throwing a lot of underneath passes, and he comes in and runs support and takes a guy out. And I'm like, he has checked every box that I've asked. So, and again, with the Gannon corners, you got to be able to win in man-to-man. right? If you're lined up and they take off on a go route, you got to be able to run with them. And he does that. Significantly better than Devin Moore is that sort of click and close thing. The ball's out, get downhill fast, break up that pass. Or at least make a tackle. Get there. The physicality, the tackling, very, very big fan of Julian Neal. Malik Muhammad is a little bit, he's faster, 4.42, which is nice. I think Julian Neal was like 4.48 or something, and Devin Moore was 4.5, I think. But you're losing some as far as the height. He's 6 foot 182, and some of the length as well. Although he does have 32 and 3/8 inch arms, so he does not have short arms. That's plenty long for being 6 foot. Oh my Lord, I'm gonna end up liking a lot of corners here. Jeez. Again, very similar schematically what he's going to be asked to do. Cover 3, cover 4 type stuff at Texas. Pattern match, which you can see on film much more so than with Julian Neal, where he was kind of man-to-man a little bit more. There was some drop or whatever, but a lot of it was man-to-man, whereas Malik is playing off more, where you kind of have to see the speed a little bit more, and you can see it more. In other words, there's more space to begin with. So with Julian Neal, for example, he kind of tries to stay close, and he might drop off a little bit because it's zone, but he's not really staying too far off, whereas Malik is doing a little bit more of that annoying stuff that we as Packer fans don't like, where you're just kind of off. But you can see kind of where he's passing off. You can see all those different kinds of things, and you can see where he's real twitched up, where he's kind of thinking like, I got to trigger down, I got to get ready, and he's ready for that. And you can see the speed a little bit more. So it's probably a little bit better to be able to see him play this style of football, whereas Julian Neal, it's harder to see. Even though they do similar things, I think with Malik, it's a little bit more one-to-one. And at least so far, I'm kind of going through this live as I'm talking to you. So far, it's really encouraging. Again, the cool thing about going through it one-to-one is you watch Julian Neal and go, that was perfect. And then you watch Malik Muhammad and go, that looks faster. And I like that. That looks real quick. And then you've got Malik Muhammad, you're going, okay, but he's smaller. Well, his tenacity coming down, I mean, it reminds me of Jair. Jair was small, but he was freaking mean. And he'd come downhill. Remember that? I'm sure you do, where he would just blow up the blocker and knock him, just eviscerate that whole thing. He just did that. He also had another play where he comes down and then like jukes to the inside. Like he wants to get in there and make tackles, and he does. So this is kind of cherry picking. Maybe overall he's been terrible at this. But what I don't like, in general, what I don't like is corners that are averse to contact, but especially given the scheme that we're running, we kind of need that. The issue here is it's not man coverage, but it's similar in terms of the mentality where you're kind of going to be on an island. You're not on an island in man-to-man, but you're on an island in your area, which means anything over there you have to be able to tackle. Anybody over there you're going to have to be able to cover. There's times when things are going to turn into man and you're going to have to run with them. Oh, there's the tornado alarm. Every second of every freaking day. I think, again, I would be fine with either of these two guys. The thing that's instantly exciting about it is that because he runs a similar kind of a scheme, there's going to be a lot of overlap. And so it feels like there's a good chance that there could be a little bit more plug and play, that he can come in and win the job right away. I'm going to have to go get a lawn chair and sit outside here in a minute. But yeah, I'm a fan of Malik. I'd be very excited to have him come in and try to compete and see what he can do. I think he could add a lot to this group, especially bringing experience and a tool set that I think is going to fit what Gannon's looking for. Igbinosun, Ohio State. Again, I'm okay with it. Similar to Moore. He's just 22. He just turned 22. Obviously plays for a massive program. He's got almost 33-inch arms, runs a 4.45 40. So he checks all those boxes. He just seems like I would say, lesser Malik. Like everything Malik does well, Igbinosun can do, but not as well. He's like he'll come downhill, but like on this last play against Wisconsin, first of all, I'm sure we would all agree, can't stand shoulder throwers. He came downhill real hard, but rather than wrapping up, he throws a shoulder. And not only a shoulder, but he like ducked so hard that he almost just threw his back at the guy, which is obviously worse. He also is very physical, but not necessarily in a good way. He might be better in more of a man-to-man kind of a situation. He likes to get his hands on people. And sometimes that material, like if he's off, it materializes into, as somebody's running, he just grabs him. And sometimes it looks real pretty. I mean, it looks smooth because it's just kind of, the guy just kind of comes to a stop. I'm not grabbing him, and then I can get up to speed with you and go wherever. But it's very dangerous, and it's going to lead to a lot of penalties. All right, let's take a break here. We'll come back. We got Keith Abney of Arizona State, Keontae Scott, Miami, Traden Stukes of Arizona, D'Angelo Pons of Indiana. And we should have the ability to go into some of the other guys that are a little bit more unlikely, but we'll check it out anyways. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So Keith Abney, I'm kind of struggling to get into. On the positive side, he is just 21 years old. He had an 86 grade at Arizona State in 2025, 85 grade in coverage, as well as a 78 run defense, 88 tackling, and 78 pass rush. So really, really good across the board and very, very young. On the negative side, we'll start with the physical. He's 5'10", 187 pounds with 30-inch arms. 30.00. So just from a physical standpoint, it's definitely not ideal. He's a smaller guy, and you can see it, for example, in the instances of 50-50 balls. It's not even necessarily that he just doesn't have super long arms, although it doesn't help to have shorter arms. But just the he's getting out-muscled. A guy with outstretched arms, but just a pair of strong hands, is able to hold on to the ball and not be disrupted. So, I'm just going to say I'm out on on Keith Abney. Getting on to Keontae Scott, the cornerback out of Miami. I actually don't mind Keontae Scott. Again, going through some of the positives. First of all, he had a massive breakout year. His first year in Miami, he comes from Auburn and had a 90 PFF grade, 91 run defense grade, 87 coverage grade, and he rushed the passer 87 times, had a 70 pass rush grade, 20 pressures, 5 sacks. Seems very intelligent. If you go watch his highlights, it's a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. Tenacious pit bull type of guy coming up and trying to wrap up tackle. And I say trying because he does have a problem with tackling. He has a lot of tackles and he has a lot of attempts, but he also has a 20% missed tackle rate. That's a problem. The bigger issue, though, is that he's a 5'11", 193-pound Javon Bullard. He is a slot safety. That doesn't mean we're not going to draft him. I don't know what the plan is, and, I don't know. But based on what I think the Packers would be more interested in, I can't envision Keontae Scott would be that guy. It could be in terms of either maybe taking that role and Bullard doing something else. Could be just in terms of bolstering the slot safety role, a Bullard backup, which would seem odd, or it could be that they envision him as an outside guy. I don't know. But I like him, and I think if we were looking for something different, I would be more interested, but I don't see us going in that particular direction. By the way, I'll reiterate what I said for those that are trying to, watch prospects or whatever, because I have found almost nobody that has been in my little All-22 archive here, which is super freaking annoying. I don't know what the deal is, but On YouTube, I've said type in their name and then verse, but again, even that has been terrible. The guys that usually do those cut-ups, there's almost nothing. The other option, if you're all out of options, is to try to find the games on YouTube. So in this case, for example, what I'm about to do is look for the Arizona Wildcats football verse whatever, and then if you add condensed, it'll save you a little bit of time. Hopefully there's something like the ACC Digital Network has been putting those out. Hopefully some other networks do that as well. I don't know, but and yeah, there's a condensed game here against BYU, which was actually his best game of the of his season. So not a bad one. Watch number 2 if you're interested. Stooks is somebody we had talked about, I think on this episode. No, it would have been on the draft show. There was a question about guys that are kind of risers, fallers, whatever, and Stooks is one of the guys that is definitely rising kind of to the point where the Packers are picking. So that's bonus number 1. Absolutely fantastic football player. He trying to stick with the positives, but it's pretty obvious he's a little bit older. 6 years at Arizona, but he's been starting since like 2021. He's been a good football player since 2023 when he first got up into the 70s and whatnot and had his absolute freaking magnum opus elite season. 90 grade, 90 coverage grade, 72 run defense, 74 tackling, 84 pass rush. Only had 11 attempts, but 4 pressures and 2 sacks on those 11 attempts. Absolutely fantastic season. He's 6'1" with almost 32-inch arms, 4.33 40-yard dash. So, I mean, everything about it on its face is really impressive. The biggest issue is, once again, we're dealing with a slot/safety guy. Again, doesn't mean we won't draft him, either because they're okay with drafting another one of those guys for a schematic reason, or because they want to move him and think he can do whatever. Fine. I don't know. I don't want to not talk about him. I think I like him a little bit more than Keontae Scott. And as much as, I mean, if you watch Keontae Scott, especially his highlights, but if you just watch him, he seems like a guy that's going to just come downhill and just do damage. But again, 20% missed tackle rate. So it's a lot of flash, but when it comes time to get the job done, 1 in 5 as a missed tackle is not great. Then you get to Stooks, and it doesn't look as flashy. It doesn't seem as aggressive. It doesn't seem as tenacious. I don't really like him in that role as much as Keontae Scott, but the guy's got 6 missed tackles at 10.7% missed tackle rate. So, you know, I don't know that he's as tenacious as Keontae Scott coming downhill, but he also is just going to do a better job. And then on top of that, at least as far as this past year, if you trust that is as who he is and what he will be, just an elite cover guy, which we got to, at the end of the day, that's ultimately what you're looking for in a corner. So it's relatively intriguing, nowhere near on the order of what I would say still with Malik Muhammad and Julian Neal being my favorite guys. Muhammad probably my top, which is making me nervous because that is Cullen's favorite corner at this point, and I think that almost cancels it out because he tends to get these things right, and I never get it right. So I'm going to have to really fall in love with one of these guys coming up here. But I think even to this point, like Devin Moore is okay. Igbinosun is okay. Abney, Scott, and Stooks have all been kind of not great fits. Abney's a little bit small. Scott and Stooks are slot guys. And then D'Angelo Pons is up next. I mean, as far the time is kind of iffy now. I don't know if we take a break and just make it a short episode or what. I thought this would take longer. Let's just do that because it's getting late. I want to do Packernet After Dark. We'll take a break now. I'll do Pons, Cisse, Chris Johnson, and Colton Hood. I don't think I'll do Terrell because he's at 29. Is that right? I just updated this. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But we'll take a break. We'll be right back. I think what we'll do is I'll go through those that I mentioned. I also want to cover Will Lee just because that's come up 2 different times now in the last 24 to 48 hours. So It's a little bit of a drop down. He is at 116. So Pons has been, there was a very brief time where Pons was the guy because he was a corner kind of in that range. Then everybody got a whiff of the fact that he's 5'9", 182, and everybody said there's no chance. I want to give him a chance. Now, as far as being big, as far as, long, I mean, he has sub 30-inch arms. He's 5'9", 182. That's not great. Here's what I'm going to say on the flip side. He runs a 4.31. So as we look at, the recovery speed and the ability to, track a guy down the field, he's got it. How about the fact that he's 21 years old? How about this as we talk about a guy, looking at breakout age? He's 21 at Indiana and started at Indiana. I would say big program, wouldn't you? 2025 with a 90 grade, 86 run defense, 85 tackling is a smaller prospect, and a 90 coverage grade. The year prior, 2024, he's 20 years old. He's a starter at Indiana, 83 grades, 77 run defense, 79 tackling, 85 coverage, basically elite across the board. The year prior, when he's 19 years old, he's at James Madison. He's a starter, 90 grade, 82 run defense, 82 tackling, 89 coverage. He had a breakout age of 19 years old, and even if you don't count James Madison, fine. He started, transfers to a big school, and guess what? He's still a dominant force. So, yeah, I'm going to at least give him a chance to prove that he can hang with the big boys. Especially considering, if you look at PFF, it says 5'9", 173. The fact that he came in at 182 is that's a big difference. You look at Jair, he was still like 195 to 200 pounds. So he was not, he was a little short, but like 5'10 or something, 5'11, 200 pounds? Not really. This would be a smaller guy, but he's not a slot guy. He is a boundary corner that has unbelievable speed and has been a dominant football player his entire career. Man, I am like, I'm a little bit obsessed with this guy. Look, I get it. If Goody wants to say, look, I don't trust it. This guy's an injury risk. There's all kinds of problems that I'm concerned about. That's fine. I understand. Just let it go past you. But, whew, I have chills. I mean, I literally have chills watching this. I'm in. I'm freaking in. I'm all the way in. I don't really care. If Goot cares and he's like, nah, a little small, fine. Then whatever. But I've always said, and this is why I don't like setting those boundaries and saying that they would never. No, they wouldn't like to, right? It's all just like positives and negatives. Everybody has negatives. Go watch any scouting report and they're going to have the negatives section. Being 5'9" goes in the negative section. Being 182 pounds goes in the negative section. But there's other things that go in the positive section. And they're going to have to overcome these things. For example, do you have a certain level of physicality and technique? For example, do you throw shoulders at people or do you wrap up? This guy wraps up. That's why he has a phenomenal run defense and tackling grade. And he has a 3% missed tackle rate this past year. He had 54 tackles, 11 assists, and 2 missed tackles on the season. He is a fantastic tackler, right? So there are some issues. You worry maybe a little bit about some physicality. Some big guy gets up there and kind of bumps into him. That's true. But with 4.31, you know what that is? That's called recovery speed. If he pushes off of you and gets a little bit of distance and the quarterback throws, can you get on your horse and close that distance and get back in there and make him pay for that? So, I mean, it's like every play. I mean, again, it's one of those where I can't wait to watch them, and then he does something else, and then he does something else, and then he does something else, and it's like the only thing keeping this guy from being a very easy first-round prospect is his size. It's the only thing. And it's, valid. I get it. But 21 years old, he's been an elite college football player since he was 19 years old. And, I mean, the guy is fantastic. And, again, with the specific checkbox I'm looking for, very twitched up. And if there's any issue, it's a little bit, again, with the physicality and press, which he's doing a lot of, but he wouldn't be doing as much of that here. He's not going to let guys really get their hands on him. He's going to keep his distance a little bit, that played perfectly as far as passing people off, etc. You're going to keep your distance, and then if they throw, I'm coming to get you. But I'm not going to be in your face where you can just push me and then get past me. Sometimes, sometimes everything. There's, nothing is every time, and pretty much everything is sometimes. So, yeah, I'm just in, and I would be very okay with taking him in the second round, and a lot of people would freak out, and a lot of they would nevers would be wrong. But I would be happy. As for Mr. Brandon Cisse, there's, like a lot of guys, good and bad. I'm not over the moon sold on him, but I could understand it. First of all, he's 20. He's not even 21 years old yet, so that is awesome. It's his first year at South Carolina, so last year he would have been 19. He played almost 400 snaps, had a 74 grade. In 2023, he was 18 and had a 70 PFF grade, only 148 snaps. But he was 18 years old at NC State with a 70 grade, 70 coverage grade, and he's maintained that throughout. Very young, talented. We'll stick with the positives here. So that's all great. He's bigger than Pons, not surprisingly. He's 6 foot, about 190. He's still not big, but it's bigger. He has 30 and 6/8, which is 3/4 inch arms. So still relatively short arms, but not as short as some other guys. 4.4 speed, which is pretty fast. That would be the second fastest guy that we've, at least as far as 40 time, second fastest guy we've talked about. The more negative side, and you can kind of see this with his grades, is he looks like he's 20. And all I mean by that is it feels reckless. I feel nervous watching him play like it's just about to be a disaster. And usually it's not, to his credit. But if you look at his grades, it's, 80, 80, 70, 70, 70, 60, 60, 60, 60, 60, 40, 30. There isn't that level of consistency like a lot of guys. Some guys don't have as impressive of, they might have a 75 or 80 overall as well, but it's a lot of 60s. And maybe not as many 80s as you'll find from Cisse, but they don't have as many just catastrophic games like against LSU and Texas A&M in 2025. I don't know if that's a flaw in his play. I don't know if it's a flaw in his mentality. I don't know if it's just because he's 20. There might be coaches looking at it going, we just got to calm him down and get him to tighten a few things up, and this guy's going to be a superstar, in which case, heck yeah. And back to the positive, again, when I talk about the trigger, which I just want to, again, be clear on what I'm talking about. All I'm talking about is there's a gap between you and the guy you're covering, and you see the quarterback start to throw in that direction, and it's that trigger to get downhill and get to that guy, or uphill or over the hill, or any whatever you're doing with the hill to get to the guy. I think he's actually quite good at that. Again, though, there's nuance here. So as far as coverage, when it comes to the trigger, I feel like, first of all, he's just got to calm down. I love how intense he is, but it's all over the place. He might trigger the wrong way, trigger a little early, or whatever. Again, it usually works, but it just doesn't feel as smooth and as clean as some of the other guys. The bigger issue that I have, though, is in the run defense category, which, by the way, he has a 90 run defense grade. I want to be clear on that. And I think a big part of to his credit is that he, at least initially, is very committed. Again, that trigger thing works in the run game as well. He reminds me of, I think it was Keontae Scott. Scott was a guy that, he's coming downhill fast and hard, but then he throws a shoulder. Cisse is very similar. He's coming. I remember that one of the first plays I saw him just boom trigger downhill when he saw that ball come out, and I audibly yelled, "Oh!" And then he got down there and I don't want to say he jumped out of the way because it was a blocker, but it was like, what? I also yelled out, "What the hell was that?" And it wasn't the first and it wasn't the only time, and it kind of kept happening. There's a whole lot of he's coming downhill real hard, but then there's a little voice in his head that's like, ooh, this is going to hurt. And he kind of like spins and sort of throws a freaking shoulder at the guy or something. And again, a lot of times he'll take him out. And I've seen him come around the corner and grab a guy's legs and bring him down and all that stuff. I'm just saying, you can see there are some psychopaths that belong on special teams because they don't care about their body and they're going to come in there and just explode people. Then there's guys that, I don't want to necessarily say business decisions because it's not like they're not trying, but they don't want to go head-on collision smacking into somebody. They just do not want to do it. And I don't think Cisse wants to do it. Again, it works. 89 grade. Now that's, when we get into the specifics of the week to week, there's also, a 46 against Alabama and whatnot. It's not always great. And the tackling, if I didn't say, was a 67.9 with a 14% missed tackle rate. So remember, Pons, who is much smaller, 3%. So I appreciate the intensity. I appreciate a lot about him. I think he's got plenty of speed. I think there's the trigger thing. I think he's got the intensity and all that stuff. I'm a little worried about the hesitancy with contact. And I'm a little worried about the borderline recklessness. Because if that's just him, I don't know. If it's because he's 20 and we can certainly improve a lot of that stuff and help him, education in football and just helping him see the field a little bit will calm him down, then yeah, he might be a fantastic player. And so I think if we draft him, that's the lens that I'm going to look through this. This is a 20-year-old that has been playing really good football since he was 19 years old and shows immense promise. With that said, as I watch him, I still would rather go Pons, especially since Cisse isn't massive. I mean, he's marginally bigger. And I understand the issues with Pons, and if otherwise, fine, let's just go Malik Muhammad. I would also rather have Malik Muhammad around later, or Julian Neal for that matter. But that isn't to say I don't like him, and I absolutely can see the vision for why this pick, if we were to make it, would make sense. All right, we're getting a little bit into silly territory here as far as the potential of these guys being here, but I want to look at it. Chris Johnson is at 39 out of San Diego State. The fact that he could fall. Remember, we drafted a guy in the second round at corner that was supposed to be a mid-first round pick. He wasn't good at football, but I want to make sure we at least attempt to cover our bases here. So Chris Johnson out of San Diego State. Actually a very similar, extremely similar. I didn't click on the wrong guy, did I? 6 foot 189, 4'4" for Cisse. 6 foot 193, 4'4" for Chris Johnson. So very similar dimensions, 30 and 5/8 inch arms, which was the same, 30 and 6/8. Yeah, so the exact same arm length, basically. Very similar dimensions for Chris Johnson. Also very similar in that he's 21, and he's been good his entire career, 4 years at San Diego State. So 21 this year, massive breakout year, 92 grade, 80 tackling, 92 coverage. Last year, he's 20, 74 grade, 72 coverage. The year before that, he didn't really start, but he played almost 300 snaps. He's 19 years old, 74 grade, 70 coverage. The year before that, he's 18 years old, 72 defense grade, 74 coverage. Less than 100 snaps, but since he's 19 years old, he's been playing at a high level. And then when he hit 21, he was arguably one of the best corners in all of college football. So there's your baseline. Also, that kind of speaks to Cisse. What happens if he plays one more year in college? Does he have his 92 grade? That is to say, is this a good player that has potential to be a lot better? Just throwing it out there. It's actually kind of funny, too, because I had talked about Keontae Scott and Traden Stukes. I think those are the two guys. And I think Cisse and Johnson are the boundary version of those guys. Keontae Scott is the flashy, in a snapshot, he looks impressive. But, again, he's flying downhill. He's making big plays behind the lines. But you look at the 20% missed tackle rate compared to Stukes, who doesn't really seem as impressive. There's nothing really that shocks you, but he's just kind of steady, seems to do his job quite well. It's the exact same thing with Cisse and Johnson. Chris Johnson is not as like, ooh, I didn't have any ooh moments like I had a ton with Cisse, but I also never had like a moment either. He's more of, and again, I'll use the term throwback, just in terms of more so what I probably would have been looking for throughout, just in general as looking for corners. As far as my specific checklist, I don't know. I think he does, if we just look at missed tackle rate, instead of the 14% for Cisse, it's 5.6. So again, there's nothing really flashy. I'm a little worried about his weight, which sounds stupid, but the only reason I say that is just sometimes it's how you play. I mean, he'll run full speed into a guy, and the guy won't even move, and he goes bouncing off, trying as hard as he can to bring him down, wrap him up, whatever. But he plays like he's kind of a smaller guy. I think he does a good enough job, but it's there's just something about that I guess is maybe a little, but he just seems like a solid corner. Like if you're just looking for somebody that is just a run of the mill, like it doesn't matter what scheme you're running, he just seems like a good corner. Yeah. And the difference between Johnson and Cisse, and again, it's kind of like Stukes and Scott. I don't know which one I'd rather have. Cisse he's a wild card. I mean, he's even just, sometimes he's out there celebrating, and I'm like, bro, all right, calm down a little bit. Like he's just always jacked up. Johnson is just laser focused. I'm gonna go do my job. Like he went and tackled a guy. Guy got up and like blasted him. And he acted like it didn't even he just kept on walking. Like he's just a robot. He's just a professional showing up and doing his job. I borderline would rather have Cisse, and that feels kind of dumb, but I like the upside of it. Chris Johnson, again, just feels so vanilla, but I mean, in a good way. But, when you look at Cisse, like trigger downhill, I mean, he is shot out of a freaking cannon. He's looking to kill somebody. Now, is he going to actually make impact or whatever? I don't know, but I mean, he's been breaking up passes. He's going crazy. Johnson, it doesn't feel like it's coming downhill quite as fast. Maybe I'm wrong. It's obviously hard to judge, even if I had a stopwatch. I mean, is it the same distance and the same this and that and everything? It would be impossible to do. But I don't know. I certainly would be fine with drafting him. Again, 21 years old, dominant college football player. I didn't really see anything I didn't like. Size isn't a red flag, but it's not a bonus. 6 foot 191, 31 3/8 inch arms. Oh no, that's the wrong guy. I'm looking at Colton Hood. It's similar though. All these guys are about the same size. Like what, 5'10" to 6 foot, 180 to 200. He's got 4.44 speed as well. Talking about Colton Hood again. I will watch Colton Hood just because it's kind of going a little bit quicker. But It's a little tough because Hood is kind of like a few of these guys that playing a little bit different schematically, so it's hard to find exact snaps that are more or less what I'm looking for. He's playing a lot of man coverage, which I'm not mad about. I mean, I've said it before. Every scheme would love to have a guy that can lock somebody down in man coverage. Now, is he a full-on lockdown? I don't know. That being said, I think the simplest way to put it would be maybe a little bit of a combo between Johnson and Cisse, or possibly a slightly better version of Chris Johnson. Again, they're very similar, I think, in terms of their height, weight, all that kind of stuff. I think he's a little bit more twitched up, a little bit more, ready to go. Now, from a PFF standpoint, he isn't as well liked. He's also 21, which I think is fantastic. Again, similar dimensions. Had a 80 coverage grade, 80 grade, which is not as good as a lot of the other guys. Actually, it's relatively similar to Cisse. 70 grade the year before at Colorado, and then about a 70 grade the year before at Auburn. So 21, 20, and 19 again. So not 18, but very similar in that he didn't play a ton when he was 19, but he did play and had a 70 grade. Goes to Colorado. He's still only 20. Figured 19 to 20. Plays about a half a season, that is to say in terms of snaps, about a 70 grade, and then has his breakout, not elite breakout like Chris Johnson had, but a breakout at 20, well, I guess at more or less 20, because he just turned 21. So it would have been 2019-18. But anyways, at 20 of an 80 grade, 80 coverage. So very, very similar as far as Cisse, Johnson, and Hood. Similar dimensions, similar ages, similar breakout stuff. And they're probably all gone. So it doesn't really matter. But just on the off chance, and watch Avion Terrell is going to be the one that falls. He is falling, by the way. I think I have him at 29. I upgraded this yesterday. He's already at 30 on the consensus board. So in the last day, he's already dropped a spot. He's been dropping, cornerback out of Clemson. I don't know if he drops in the next week all the way down, but whatever. I'm not doing it. I'm just saying. And then just a quick note on Will Lee. He's 6'2", 190, so he is a little bit taller. He has a little bit longer, nearly 33-inch arms, which are pretty long arms. 4.52, 40-yard dash, so that's not terrible. Obviously on the slower side of things, but it's whatever. He's 23, so he's a little older. PFF, not the biggest fan, although he did have his best year, his first year at Kansas State, so that would have been when he was 20. 76th grade, followed by a 68 at Texas A&M, and then a 67 at Texas A&M. 69 coverage grade, which was his lowest of the 3 years, and a 52 run defense grade, which I will say you can probably put him in the at least a little hesitant to tackle category. He does not seem like a huge fan of contact. He'll do it. He'll try. But again, 53 run defense grade, 61 tackling grade, 16% missed tackle rate. It's definitely not an asset for him. As far as the coverage, I'd kind of put him in and around the Malik Muhammad kind of thing, but not quite as good. If we're talking later rounds, probably, I don't know. I'd have to watch the other guys around there to see if I felt like it was the best option for where is he sitting right now? Will Lee is at 116, so fourth round maybe. Is that better than a third round Malik Muhammad or a second round Brandon Cisse? Maybe, I don't know. Definitely wouldn't say I'm in love, but I just got done going the other direction, looking at better and better corners, so it's hard to drop all the way down now to 116 and be blown away. Tacario Davis is also there, which I probably should watch at some point, but not today. We're not doing that today. Anywho, thems are my thoughts on the potential second-round cornerback class. Really like Malik Muhammad and Julian Neal. I think Cisse, Johnson, Colton Hood are very similar. If they happen to fall and we grab them, I'd be more than happy with that. D'Angelo Pons is the biggest wild card. Did not expect to like him as much as I do, and I really, really like him. Although, again, I understand the size concerns. But anywho, I'm going to leave it at that. You all have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.